Remember the story of Marcus Fakana? He was an 18-year-old British lad on a holiday with his family in United Arab Emirates in Dubai, and he had a holiday romance with a girl, also from London. She was then 17, is now 18. The holiday romance, including physical holiday romance, was discovered by this girl's mother, who complained, reported it to the authorities in Dubai, where it is a very serious criminal offence to have sex with someone out of marriage and under the age of 18. The 18-year-old Briton Marcus Fakana has just been sentenced to a year in prison in Dubai simply for having consensual sex with a girl who was just a few months younger than him. Now, whether or not he was even aware of that law in Dubai is quite another matter, but he's expected to appeal against his sentence. Just in reaction to that breaking news, Benedict Spence, I mean, look, you can say, you know, drug dealers who get sentenced to 20 years behind bars, I'm just like, well, you're drug smugglers. Well, you know what? You knew the law, tough. I've got very little time for that. Consensual relations, you know, with someone on a holiday, I doubt very much either of them thought anything was wrong. The girl apparently is of British Indian descent, apparently a very conservative, the small C family, horrified that she'd had, you know, they found out she'd had sex. Obviously, it was the parents discovered, you know, by accident. Then complained to the authorities. This young man, who for most of us would regard as having done nothing wrong at all, facing a year behind bars.
I mean, the family, I believe, also waited until she was safely back in the UK before making the complaint. Yeah. Otherwise, she would be in just as much. She would be in just as much, if not more, frankly, trouble, because she was a woman. Yeah. There are far stronger penalties for women who have sex out of wedlock than there are for men. So I think, you know, that needs to be taken into account as well. Not exactly a sort of a, you know, particularly a good start to the tale. Look, we will sit here and we will say this seems like a really harsh punishment for something that we consider to be perfectly normal, commonplace to consenting adults. But we also complain at great length, don't we, when people come to this country and they take advantage of, frankly, the benevolence of a lot of people, and they talk about how their culture needs to be respected. It's one of those things where, as much as I do say, yes, it does seem very harsh, that is the culture. Those are the laws there.
I'm going to guess that this 18-year-old lad didn't know that this was the law.
Possibly, but I do feel very bad for him. Because the circumstances around this
I think the mother
really
of this 17-year-old girl is an absolute beep for doing this to this young man.
But to tell you one thing else, at least that country actually sends people to prison that breaks the law. You know,
don't have a problem building
They have no problems, and it's a very small country.
I would really like to know if, again, I've got very little time. If you do get, but again, like also they make it clear about what to accept. Again, one of the reasons I don't go to these countries, but they make it clear what the public rules are. But again, I don't think there's any reason to think anyone would know. I didn't think they were breaking the law. Again, okay, slap on the wrist, you know. You know, throw him out of the country, say he can't come back, give him a fine. Fair enough. A year behind bars, and I have a funny feeling that year behind bars in Saudi Arabia, sorry, it's in Dubai, is actually a year behind bars.
Prison.
It's not, I mean, absolutely heartbreaking for this young lad, really, it is. I doubt very much whether our Foreign Office is doing anything, because basically, as far as I can tell, our Foreign Office and our number 10, our Prime Minister, spend most of their time basically on their knees prostrating themselves in front of anyone with any money in the Arab world, saying, oh, please come and buy up our country. Please come do anything. Oh, yeah, and then, by the way, and we're going to probably support FIFA awarding the Men's Football World Cup to Saudi Arabia as well. I mean, that's the mad territory we're in. But, yeah, sod rules. But anyway, I thought I'd give that breaking news. Your reaction to that would be very welcome as well. 0344 499 1000. What do you feel about this lad getting a year behind bars for having consensual sex with his 17-year-old holiday romance girlfriend, only discovered because the mother of the girlfriend... I hope she feels pleased about herself.
I'm sure she does, actually. That's exactly the sort of thing that sort of person probably is delighted.
I do wonder if it was the fact that this Marcus Fakana is a young black lad, and there's an Indian family. I mean, I don't know, but I'm wondering whether that was part of the issue.
As a slightly unrelated topic of conversation, many white British liberals would probably be horrified if they spent 5 minutes talking to many of the ethnic minority communities in the UK and asked them what their views were on other ethnic minority communities. They're not that wholesome.
No, we all know only white people can be racist. criticisms. Didn't you get the memo?
Of course.
Didn't you? We're the only bad people, but there we are. Anyway, look, let's go back to these prisons. This plan to build all these prisons. Alan Rainer, the Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary, is actually going to do something. I know. They're going to build a load more houses. They reckon 250,000 more houses. Can't get the planning through for that. No, not 250,000. Oh, no, I think it's 300,000 a year, which is over the 250,000 a year, which, of course, this last government wanted to build and didn't build. I've got very few hopes it's going to happen. Yeah. In order to do that, you're going to have to ride roughshod over people's planning objections. You're going to have to do that. It's what most other countries do. France just builds loads of stuff. China, I mean, literally put anything anywhere. But when it comes to prisons, I think we can all agree. People might go, oh, I don't mind new housing somewhere near me, but I definitely don't want a new prison. But they are going to build new prisons, and they're going to push through prisons in Lancashire, Leicestershire, Buckinghamshire, and in Yorkshire. Massive objections from local towns and villages. Of course, these are going in sort of rural areas. They can't go in the middle of nowhere because you need to have people to actually come and staff these places. But are you in favour of these objections from local people being overridden, given that if you do allow those objections to win, you literally are never going to build anything? Yeah,
in principle, yes. When it comes to matters of significant national infrastructure, you have to be able to build these things. And
roads, railways,
and this isn't even about this isn't even about facilitating economic growth. The first duty of the state is upholding the law and security. That means being able to put people who violate that in places where they can no longer harm people. It's literally, and again, people in the UK seem to think that it's about their benefits or the NHS or being able to do whatever they want in their old age. It's none of those things. The first duty is these are the laws, this is the border. We ensure that these things are upheld. This government, previous ones, consistently forget that. This is something that has to be able to ride over the concerns of local communities. Now, I do understand that given we now find ourselves with such a massive shortfall, that there may be a desire to slightly ride very quickly over these things that could lead to mistakes. Quality of building, for instance, as you pointed out, where these things are going to be. Is it the best? Is it actually the best place? But yes, it is right, I'm afraid. Even if there wasn't the shortage that there is, for the government to be able to say on things like prisons and then things like reservoirs, actually, you need this. The state needs it to function. Everyone needs this.
We can't say build more prison places or build more houses or build more power stations. Oh, but not here. Everyone says but not here, but they have to go somewhere. Again, they're not going to be building any of this stuff near me. I'm in a completely already built-up area. And a lot of people saying, oh, we should do that, will be saying that. But if it was you, you'd be putting in the objections. But here's the thing. Shouldn't we do the thing? This was something I remember Michael O'Leary suggesting from Ryanair. I went to Talkie Gove once.
Make everybody stand in the prison.
Make everyone
for
stand.
Extra capacity.
That's there's different rules. He literally looked at charging people to use the toilet at one point. He does not care.
You put him in charge of the prison, there would be an actual riot every day.
I reckon that Ryanair, very efficient airline. What can I say? I tell you what, though, I reckon the staff on Ryanair flights they're stricter than the prison staff on a lot of places. Good God, don't cross them. Anyway, where I was saying, Michael O'Leary, one of the things he was saying was, everyone will object to another third runway here or anything like that. But actually, why not pay people the benefit of saying, look, you're going to have to put up with a bit of the noise, especially and the traffic and all the disruption when stuff's being built, whether it's a power station, a new airport, new housing. Why not compensate people for that? And part of the funding for these things be compensating local people. And we've had that about, if you're going to have a load of power stations you get cheaper bills for years.
And but the thing is, I don't even think it should be a carrot offered in return for people to give you support. It should just be that that's the government. If actually the government comes in and says, we're building this here, we're building this here, and this is what is the law, we will give you X, Y, Z% off your energy bill or off your council tax or whatever it is, and we make up the shortfall. There shouldn't be the opportunity for people to say, I still don't want it, if it's a matter of national importance. That should just be automatic.
We're going to have to start functioning as a proper country, aren't we? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We are told either way, but presidents are going to run out of space, even though we're building all these new places. I mean, that's the thing. We're still never getting ahead of these things, are we? But don't worry, we're not going to put people behind bars. We're just going to have community centres, and they won't work either. I mean, it is absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? Let's talk about the angry trade unions for public services. Of course they are. They're always angry. It's literally what they do. But we've got warnings of more strikes over a 2.8% pay rise. This is the opening offer from the government. to the pay review bodies about how much they're willing to pay for pay rises for public sector workers. It is just marginally over what the predicted inflation rate is for next year. Very unlikely that's going to make people happy. We've already got the RMT threatening to strike, haven't we, during the Christmas period, when people often are very reliant on trains. This is a Vanti West Coast. They're going to be planning to strike just before Christmas and just after Christmas, just when people are travelling, and presumably when they want some time off as well. How convenient.
Yeah, how convenient.
I mean, what sort of pay rise would be a reasonable offer? 40%?
Infinity. just
double everyone's pay.
Open-ended. It just goes up like a totalizer. That's all it is. But they could give pay based on, I don't know, how hard you hit the hammer and it goes up. That would be a novel way of doing it. We might as well do it that way. You're never going to make people happy, especially if they feel that they have the people that they're negotiating with over a barrel. They will always think that they can get more. In some ways, that's a good thing. You know, human progress is driven by that kind of, frankly, acquisitiveness, greed, if you want. That is a good thing. But this country is not currently in a situation where it can be doling out huge amounts of money because, admittedly, yes, previous governments have badly mismanaged it. Nobody is disputing that. And that is not entirely the fault of this Labour government. Maybe a previous Labour government back in the day, they had a part to play, but not this one. But nonetheless, for everybody to prosper, there needs to be economic growth. The current policies that this government is pushing forward with are not going to facilitate that, and the current pay rises that they're doing clearly are not going to facilitate it, because the people are still going to go on strike. Again, because they're not looking at the functioning of their industry, they're looking at their own pay packets. But
also, when you look at the private sector, public sector, God, I've banged on about this enough times, in terms of productivity growth in the public sector, it's actually gone down in the last few months of this year. It's gone down, not even up. I mean, not even just. I mean, but for 20 years, it's basically been completely static. We're paying more people more money to do basically less work. I'm sorry, it's just untenable. And with new technology, the way things are, the idea that you should be less efficient when you've now got computers on having to write everything out in hand. Oh, come on, it's absurd.
The civil service needs to be run on a far more aggressive footing and a far more competitive footing, where actually people do fear for their jobs if they don't perform.
I suppose
it's a really simple thing, but if you don't perform in the private sector, you will lose your job.
Oh, yes.
But in the public sector, you don't. And the incentive is not, in fact, to perform your job better. The incentive is to increase the number of responsibilities your department has, because that further insulates you from having to do the initial thing. It's protectionism, and you need to strip away all of that. And seriously, I know a lot of civil servants wouldn't like to hear this, you could almost certainly run all of the functions that the government currently does on about 20%
I'm with
of the
Elon.
people.
I'm with Elon all the way. I really am.
Dominic Cummings as well. All of these people, so many people in the private sector.
Dominic Cummings just went in and insulted everybody, which is very different.
Nobody's
from
saying
Elon
that
Musk.
he was a good, he was a diagnostician, not the surgeon.
Yeah, but,
is the way to think
but
about
anyone
that.
who's serious, I mean, genuinely, again, I've always just said it's really simple. If no one has to replace you when you're away on holiday or sick, maybe your job doesn't need to be done.
Yeah. Take it from the guy who builds rockets. He doesn't have time for waste.
Yeah, but also, again, if you're able to, these experiments, if you're able to work a 5-day week and you're able to do all your work in 4 days, that doesn't say that 4-day working weeks work. It's saying that you did very, very little work for at least a fifth of your time when you were at work Monday to Friday.
Extra days that you could be doing more in, basically.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. You're not working efficiently. I'm sorry, I've just got no time for it. Talking about people who really do work very, very hard and for very little pay. Farmers.
You and me. Sorry, farmers.
Do I don't know. Farmers. And we've spoken a little bit earlier to one of the farmers leading the protests. Last time round they said, we're not bringing a load of tractors. We don't want to disturb so many people. They're very keen on keeping public on their side, not doing Extinction Rebellion style, closing the roads. But today, Prime Minister's Questions starts in 40 minutes. Usual rules, Peter Cardwell's going to watch it, so we don't have to. We'll just get the highlights. But they're going to be outside there. All the MPs will be there. And you cannot miss those tractors. There are hundreds of them on the streets of Westminster. And they are making their show. Now, farmers do not take their key, very expensive, hard-fought for, all massively on loan tractors to London, travelling miles and miles. People travel from the Isle of Wight and from, the west of Wales, all the way to London for the day. They've got stuff to do. They don't have days off. They've got stuff to do. And they're doing that today because they are really angry. Do you think there's any chance the government is going to listen to them?
I don't know. I think it would be catastrophic for the government to give in, having set these lines out. It would, be a real sign of weakness. Well, then there'd be that piece of
giving on winter fuel tax.
Yeah, but this is why it's foolish to pick a fight with the people that literally grow your food. I'm really sorry.
I think they're like me. They're townies. They're not really in touch with like how much we rely on British farmers.
Yeah, I don't think that they get it. I think that there is an element of class war to this. I think they view and this is
they're
mad.
Not. Who isn't it? Wasn't there an advisor who said they don't vote for us anyway?
Yeah, but of course they don't vote for you because you do really silly things that harm their industry. There is this perception that every farmer is a sort of a tweed-wearing toff. Yeah. It's not true. Yeah. Actually, the majority of people who work in farming are the definition of working class, not even middle class. They are people who, as we were mentioning earlier, they leave school at 16, they have however many GCSEs, not because they're thick, but because that's what they're going to go into, and they've always known that's what they're going to go into. And really, if Labour were interested in the welfare of the working people of this country, right there is a community of people who, almost half the population lives rurally, very important. Everybody understands how much work goes into it. They don't care because it's not actually about working people. It's about that sort of, as you say, that sort of metropolitan perspective, which is you can just import all the food and it's cheaper and we'll subsidise other people. And it doesn't matter if there's a war overseas. That never happens. That never impacts shortages.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't even gotten to Syria yet, unusually. We will do.
Yeah.
But I just want to raise, linked to that, again, the sort of people who run our country, the metropolitan elite. Harry Cole's the political editor of The Sun, and he's written this article, the astonishing new aristocracy of couples, relatives and Nepo babies who run the Labour government. Nepo, of course, is like you get these Nepo stars and celebrities in California.
From the word nepotism.
Nepotism, basically. They get their job because they're the son or daughter of a famous person. But basically, more than 24 ministers, including Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, Pat McFadden, who's the unofficial Deputy Prime Minister, Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary. They have husbands or wives or other relatives on the taxpayer or the Labour Party payroll, according to their analysis. Loads of husband and wife politicians, siblings, the offspring of Labour power brokers. You got, the Kinnocks
of this
world. So
Kinnocks,
Rachel Reeves' husband is a powerful Whitehall Mandarin. Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden's wife is a key aide to Keir Starmer. Rachel Reeves' sister Ellie attends Cabinet. Ellie Reeves' husband John Cryer is a Labour minister in the House of Lords. The Health Secretary Wes Streeting, his other half, is paid by Labour as a spin doctor. The Minister Georgia Gould's husband is an advisor to Pension Secretary Liz Kendall, who was of course a minister in the Labour government that her dad Philip Gould was in. Her mother serves as a Labour peer. You name it. It's just extraordinary how much they are, the great and the good. They're all related to each other, they all know each other. Remember, last time round, we had Yvette Cooper was married to Ed Balls. We actually, we had two sisters, the Eagle sisters in cabinet, in government as well. So was it ever thus, or is it part of the problem that they live in such an insular, tiny little world? They only meet and socialise with people like that.
But this is how power is accrued, and it doesn't actually matter what your ideology is or what part of the world or what era you live in. This is how it works. When there is a group that has a handle on power, they intermarry, they socialise with each other. It is the same principle as people going to the same public schools and all that sort of thing. It's
just a different establishment.
It's just a different... it's the same in the Chinese Communist Party. Actually, everybody is the son of somebody or other, or the daughter. That's how these things always work. And you understand why, because you want to sort of keep things... If you are somebody with a lot of power and you don't necessarily want to
keep it in the family.
You keep it, literally, you keep it in the family.
But they don't want farmers to keep their farms in the family.
But this is ultimately what leads these things to atrophy. If you don't have the influx of new ideas and new people, it stagnates. But also,
they all talk about diversity and equality, all these people, but actually they help push their kids. They only want people who think the same as them, and that's what happens, which is why they get everything so unbelievably, catastrophically wrong. 11:24 is the time. More from Benedict Spence. Up next, we're going to take your calls on prisons, on farmers. Also, I want to talk more about this 18-year-old Briton, Marcus Fakana, sentenced to a year behind bars in prison, simply in Dubai, simply for a holiday romance with a girl just 6 months younger than him. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.